Okay, so there's something about an eggplant handshake.
Eggplant agreement.
Yeah, they got an agreement to make eggplant parmesan.
We all know there was a point when comedy movies stopped being funny. There was a transition from the golden era that included the likes of Wedding Crashers, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and The Hangover, to whatever the heck we have going on right now. But what was the last great comedy movie? Today I'm going to be breaking down the 2018 comedy Blockers, a comedy so great that I had to see it in theaters 8 times.
You ruined my moment!
Your moment.
If you're like me, you love Fast Times at Ridgemont High from 1982, American Pie, of course, from 1999, and Superbad from 2007. But what makes a teen comedy iconic and timeless? Well, Blockers is the 2010s version of Give Me the Same but Different, and you'll no doubt see the resemblance between Blockers and your all-time favorite teen comedies by the end of the video. And after rewatching this movie for the first time in nearly 7 years, I was instantly reminded of why I fell in love with this movie and why it is going to stand the test of time. There are a lot of good comedies, but very few reach the level of Blockers. And you're probably also fatigued by this era of comedy movies, so I'm sure we can agree that nothing from this decade comes even remotely close to the quality of Blockers. We follow 3 girls who are seniors in high school. They make a pact to lose their virginity on prom night, but all hell breaks loose when their parents find out and will stop at no end to prevent their plan from working out. It's definitely a nod to American Pie, except the protagonists are female, and there's the added and very fun element of the parents, which we'll touch on in a moment. And I'm just going to give you a fair warning that this video definitely will contain spoilers, but I'm going to try not to spoil literally everything about it. I definitely want you to be able to watch this video and still be able to enjoy the movie if you haven't seen it yet. But we're also definitely going to be breaking down one of the most surprisingly golden performances of all time. So we've established that virtually zero comedies nowadays can even hold a candle to a comedy from 10 plus years ago. But what's arguably the single biggest thing that's separating modern comedies from the comedies of the golden era? Well, let me tell you a story. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and you might be surprised to hear this, but I'm a bit of a football fan, and I was really excited for the game this year. I thought it was going to be a really great game. And if you know anything about football, you know that it was the exact opposite of that. The game was essentially over by halftime. Instead of wallowing in my sorrows and letting the night defeat me, I decided to head to the movie theater. I bought a ticket to a horror comedy that was supposed to be heavy on the comedy. And about 30 minutes into the film, I decided I could not take any more of it, and so I decided to head out. But there was one big problem, and that when I started to get up, my cell phone fell out of my pocket, fell in between the chair, and I could not find it. So instead of being that annoying person that got an usher to come into the theater and start flashing a flashlight around while I tried to find my phone, I decided to just stomach the final hour of the movie. But what about this movie was so particularly dreadful? Aside from the fact that there was zero humor whatsoever. I honestly don't really like calling out movies by name, but if you can guess which one it was in the comments, I'll let you know. Well, this movie fell into the same trap that I would say about 9 out of 10 comedies from this current era fall into. And I personally think that this is the #1 thing that's preventing audiences from going out to the theater and deciding to just stay home instead. Literally zero of the characters in this movie were relatable or even recognizable, and all of the performances just seemed off. But Blockers is a breath of fresh air. We have Julie, the romanticist who dreams of a perfect life and wants her first time to be almost a fantasy world. We have Kayla, who is not a planner, loves to explore, and even just views sex as something to get over with. And then Sam, who is a sexually confused and closeted lesbian that succumbs to peer pressure. And it's not just the kids. The parents, played by John Cena, Leslie Mann, and Ike Barinholtz, are all real in their own own right as well. We have John Cena, who plays the overbearing father, Leslie Mann, who plays the mother who just can't let go of her child, and Ike Barinholtz, who plays the father who was absent for the bulk of his daughter's life and is now looking to rekindle. And I find the A-B plot of the kids and parents to be particularly neat because I can't think of any other teen comedies that focus so heavily on the parents as well. I mean, can you think of any? Each character is introduced quickly and seamlessly. In a matter of minutes, you know exactly who these characters are and everything about them. And a big chunk of this is because these characters are so realistic and lifelike that it doesn't need this huge giant leap of faith. All of their conversations and actions are realistic to the point that you feel like you're a fly on the wall for actual conversations. And I mean, how often are you watching a modern comedy or just modern teen movie and everyone is either completely unrecognizable or everyone just fits the idealism of how 10% of the world wants people to behave? You know, it just feels so often like nobody is unique and all of the characters sound exactly the same. Or we get into this scenario where there's like two classes of characters where we have like the kids and the adults, and all of the kids sound exactly the same and all of the parents sound another way. It really reminds me of this one Family Guy sketch.
All the characters sounded exactly the same.
Great show, Mark. Yeah, you really captured me perfectly. Me too, Marky. You are so talented.
Yet everyone in this movie is so uniquely defined that I bet if you printed off a script of this movie and blacked out the characters' names, you would be able to tell who was delivering which line of dialogue. But getting the right characters is honestly only half the battle because a good script can only take you so far. And really, there's nothing that kills me more than a movie that clearly had a really great script and just gets crushed by bad direction and or bad casting. But instead of falling victim to this fatal flaw, Blockers actually does a 180 from what's become the norm and elevates the script as a result of S-tier casting and direction. And if there's anything that this current era of comedy has taught us, it's just how hard it is to nail writing, casting, and directing all in the same movie. So Hollywood needs to take notes on this movie because the casting and directing is legendary. Each of the girls' realism matches the way they were written, but we need to especially focus on the three parents. The chemistry between Leslie Mann, John Cena, and Ike Barinholtz is impeccable.
This is sex if I've ever seen it illustrated in emoji
Oh,
form.
no, maybe not. They're best friends. They're just saying, like, you're okay with me. You're okay to me. You're okay
You say that to your friends? Whenever I see my friends, I go, hey, you're okay with me.
The central plot is about the three high schoolers, but the three parents really steal the show. I especially want to focus on John Cena, who probably felt like a bit of a gamble at the time given his persona in the media. There are so many things that could have gone wrong with casting him, and only a few things that could have gone right. But everything that could have gone right went right 1,000 times over. And every single thing that possibly could have gone wrong was nowhere to be seen. Don't get me wrong, thanks to all the other excellent casting choices and flawless direction by Kay Cannon, the movie still would have been great without John Cena, but his performance takes this movie to new levels. Take this scene, for example.
Those your daughters.
No way. Kayla wears cleats and Bears jerseys, not some dirty stripper underwear.
You thought they were mine.
What am I, giving her an allowance in singles?
You know, everything about it just feels so natural. It doesn't turn into a clown show or just take you out of it because it's so out of character. And it's not just funny because the writing is particularly strong. It's also funny because this is who we know the character to be. And as someone who's cast 2 comedy movies and watched literally thousands of audition tapes, I can tell you that 95% or more of actors would have played the scene something like this. What am I supposed to do? Give her allowance in singles? And turn the thing into this big full-blown theatric and just put nothing that is true to the script at all. But Cena doesn't do that at all, and he adds a unique personal touch that only further adds to the comedy. And David Zucker, the creator of Airplane, actually talked about this exact phenomenon in a recent interview.
You know, he says, I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. And that's all we needed for the laugh. You don't need Jim Carrey, bless his heart, to be, I am serious, and don't call me,
And you just never see these sorts of grounded and genuinely funny comedic performances in what Hollywood spits out today. But it wasn't just this scene or even John Cena. Blockers does what no modern comedies do, and also another thing that very few of even the greatest comedies of all time do. For starters, all of the characters are hilarious, and it's full of great one-liners staggered throughout the movie. Just take this basic interaction between Julie and her friends.
Coconut oil. For lube. I hear it works just as well, and it makes blowjobs taste like almond joy.
Thank God it doesn't taste like mounds. I'd rather eat 10 dicks than 1 mound.
On its face, it's so simple, but yet it's just pulled off so well, and you just never see this sort of thing nowadays. And Blockers is full of these funny lines at every turn. But the other aspect that I teased a bit ago, something that you so seldom see, even in the greatest of comedies, this movie also carries the humor from the opening credits to the closing credits. And you might think, of course it does. Any great comedy will, but I would challenge that. How many great comedies can you think of that are still hilarious well into the third act? And it's not a knock, because it's one hell of a task to stay funny throughout the climax and the most serious moments in the movie. I would even point to Wedding Crashers, my favorite movie of all time and top 5 all time in overall laugh counts. But even this movie pretty much lays the humor to rest once we get towards the big finish. But Blockers finds a way to still consistently pull in the laughs, even in the most serious of moments. And the more you can positively differentiate your movie from the rest of the pack, the further you cement your legacy. Because everyone I saw this movie with, out of the 8 times I went to theaters, they might not remember every single laugh or every single line, but they will never forget the nonstop laughter from start to finish. And about a month ago, I ran into an old friend with whom I actually went to go see this movie with 2 of the 8 times. In the group we were with, the subject of the greatest modern comedies came up. In a matter of seconds, Blockers was the first title that came off of both of our tongues. And if you miss this 2000 style of comedy movies, well, I actually have a stoner comedy, my directorial debut titled Rosetta Stoned, which follows the story of Ryan, a burnout senior in high school who agrees to get his autistic classmate Edward high in exchange for homework help, but realizes he's in for more than he bargained for when Edward makes advances at friendship. And I will give that movie to you for free when you sign up for my email list, and I will be including that link in the pinned comment and in the description. But we've primarily just focused on the comedy of it all up to this point. Have you ever noticed how it feels like every single Hollywood movie nowadays tries to pander to everyone, but then ultimately ends up making a movie for no one? Well, Blockers puts on a masterclass in not going out of its way to target everyone, but ultimately having universal appeal. But how could a movie with as specific of a plotline as Blockers be able to connect with virtually everyone? Believe it or not, I am not a woman, yet I see my younger self and my younger friends in all of these characters. I had a friend group in high school, I went to prom, I did dumb things with my friends, and honestly, pretty much everyone else checks all of these boxes too. It doesn't matter if everything in your personal life played out the way it did for the characters in this movie, but what does matter is that everything is at least familiar. Some of the best writing advice I ever got was to only craft stories from my personal experience and to write the stories that I wanted to see. This is clearly the case with Blockers as well, and as a result, it garners universal appeal. But what's arguably the single hardest thing to pull off when it comes to a comedy movie? And what's the biggest reason why critics consistently pan these movies, outside of the fact that most of them have zero sense of humor whatsoever? Well, a lot of comedy movies are just funny, and that's kind of it. No one ever really changes, there's never any real drama, and it ends up just becoming a laugh fest that abruptly ends. I think a perfect example of these sorts of films are the spoof movies and straight-to-DVD comedies. I mean, they definitely deliver on the laughs, but have you ever once actually cared about any of these characters in any of these movies? And honestly, I don't mind this. I think this sort of movie has a place, and when done right, you will never hear me complain about them. I mean, these are great breaks from reality. But unless the comedy is executed at an A+ level, these are not the kinds of movies that you'll ever rewatch. But Blockers does something special and honestly quite rare in that the movie is full of drama and character growth without ever becoming melodramatic and losing the feel of its aura. The emotional stakes of the film are set early when it's established that Julie is going away to college and that her mom is afraid of moving on and letting her daughter go. This is called back, spoiler alert, towards the end of the second act when Julie reveals to her mom mom that she's not going to college 45 minutes away, but instead several hours away, and is doing it to get as far away as possible from her. The fathers of Kayla and Sam also have complicated relationships with their daughters that are set up early on and come full circle by the end of the film. Each of these girls has their own unique sexual experience on prom night and learn valuable lessons about themselves and the world around them. But so do their parents too, and it's powerful. And without giving too much away, I found the moment that Sam and her father have at the end to be particularly moving. Sam's dad is essentially just an element of comedy throughout the film, but he ends up having a very serious heart-to-heart with her. And it does have some comedy layered in, but it also feels earned. I can't tell you how many times I see a comedy where it's all just silliness, and then there's this super forced, contrived emotional moment that was never properly set up and never earned. And Blockers does such a great job of subverting the cliche. The movie, of course, doesn't come without its flaws. But honestly, the only real flaws I see in this movie is when it abandons what made it so great and does the exact opposite. We've spent so much time establishing just how realistic and grounded and relatable all of the characters are, but then there are a couple of characters and scenes that just feel straight up cartoony. There's a limo driver in the movie who comes off as grounded at times and then just has some straight up goofball moments such as this one.
Sam! You'll see you later. You'll see you later.
What are you
This night is not over. I swear to Christ. Dose of hazard.
And it just kind of took me out of it. Like, if you're gonna make a movie in the universe of American Pie or Superbad, then commit to it. Don't include something out of the world of Scary Movie or Dude, Where's My Car? The same can be said for Angelica, the girl that Sam has a crush on. She's introduced in a fantasy sequence, and all is fair, no problem. But then as we progress, there are a couple of moments again that would never happen in real life, like this one. I mean, come on. This isn't a fucking superhero movie. But this next one is just straight up a cardinal sin when it comes to filmmaking. And it's also one of the biggest reasons why the general public has such a negative opinion on this current era of cinema. The movies are a place to escape from reality and to take a break from all of the chaos that is present in our culture. And Blockers does this so well until it doesn't. There's a sequence in the second half of this movie in which the three parents run into another parent in the movie, and she gets on this soapbox and preaches to them about how it's just not a big deal that their daughters are losing their virginity, and that the way society views female sexuality versus male sexuality is a complete double standard. And I actually genuinely don't even remember this scene from when I went to go see it in theaters. I mean, I wonder why.
So what do you want to do next?
Go to Mars, dude.
But it happened, and I honestly don't disagree with anything she said, but it's also kind of just the point of the movie. I mean, you just never want a character to come in and just expositionally tell you what the theme of the movie is, and then explicitly tell you how you should feel. But Blockers ends up awkwardly doing this for a few minutes. And it's really especially a bummer because at its core, the movie conveys this exact message on its own. And I really think these two issues are big enough to prevent it from being in the same territory as Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Superbad, and American Pie. But honestly, these two issues were really the only issues I found at all with this movie, and they only took up about 2% of the runtime. So all in all, that's pretty damn good. And I'm gonna double down by calling Blockers not only the great teen comedy of the 2010s, but also the last great comedy. And we've unfortunately explored modern comedies exclusively through a pessimistic lens. But what if I told you the tide is about to turn, and that we are about to get 5 new comedies who have the writers, directors, and actors from your favorite comedy movies from the 2000s? Well, buckle up, because this is reality, and I break down all 5 of these movies here.